What's up, everybody? This is Zoya, the Russian Korean. So this is probably the first time that I believe this is the first time that I'm making a video about another creator, another league creator out there. But the reason why I decided to make a video about this is because, like, I mean, you will see in a second, right? That's what I'm making the video for. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen my video where I talk about why I am a Russian Korean and like just the story of my family, you can check that video out. I will probably leave a card somewhere up here. But long story short, yes, I am a Korean who was born in Russia and raised there, and I was raised on an island called Sakhalin, which at one point was a territory of Japan. So while the island is now officially Russian, people still kind of debate over, some people still debate over whether Japan should have it back, and Japan actually actively is trying to get it back. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because it has directly to do with this guy that I'm going to be talking about. So this guy is a Korean, and his name, his nick, is Lego77. He is a Korean Singed and Rumble main. Like, I can't get over the fact that he's a Singed main. Like, how many Singed mains do you see out there? But he's a Singed and Rumble main. He actually is kind of an ex-pro player. He played in the pro scene here and there in different regions. In Korea, he's been a challenger for the last 7 years, and then in the last 2 years, he had this thing where he tried to reach rank 1 in Japan. So he has played on the Korean server, right, on the Chinese super server, and then also in Japan. And so one of his goals for his content is to become #1 in Japan. And so he achieved it last year, and he also already achieved it this year. But something that he did both last year and this year, it made Riot Japan a little bit upset, okay? It's a little bit controversial what he did. Well, for them, it's not a little bit, it's a big deal. But basically what he did was once he reached rank #1 in Japan, he changed his nickname. I'm not sure what his nickname was originally, probably something along the lines of Lego77, whatever. And then he changed it to Dokdo Korean. Now, for most of you, probably that doesn't say anything, but for Koreans and for the Japanese, it means a lot. He changed his nickname to Dokdo Korean, and then his nickname promptly got changed to something else. So he was like, okay, that happened. He made an announcement about it and just talked about it in general. And a lot of his viewers also were kind of upset about it. And then what happened was the second time, so this year, just recently, he reached rank 1 again on the Japanese server. And again, he changed his nickname, but this time he tried to make it a little less obvious. And instead of writing Dokdo, like actually spelling out the name, he said Do Korean Do. There is no direct spelling of Dokdo anywhere, but it said Do Korean Do. And he promptly, pretty much instantly, within less than 3 days, he got suspended and his nickname got changed. And as you can see, it's not a very pretty one. So for those of us who are not Korean, who are not Japanese, we're looking at this and we're like, okay, why is this happening? Why does he do that? Why would Riot Japan suspend a rank 1 challenger on their server over a nickname? Mind you, the suspension, clearly they state that it's because of the nickname. He's not toxic, he doesn't have any behavior issues when it comes to his gameplay, and overall he's pretty chill, right? I mean, he's a Singed main, come on. So why is this whole thing a thing? Well, because Dokdo is the Korean name for a small set of islands. It is currently Korean territory, and Koreans call it Dokdo. They believe it is rightfully theirs, that it's been historically theirs for many centuries, and that they have the right to have the islands. On the other hand, there's Japan. And Japan calls the islands Takeshima. And they believe that the islands are actually theirs. And they believe that the Koreans are kind of unlawfully occupying the islands and they want them back. You can Google the whole thing, you can find all the details about the dispute. Overall, all I can say is that it's highly emotionally charged, especially for Koreans, and also it's very political. Why? Because the scars of the Second World War are still pretty fresh in people's minds, especially in Korea, as those who were victims of the colonization that happened under the Japanese imperial rule. And so, yeah, the fact that they could get those islands back from many things that they lost, they believe that it is rightfully theirs. So that's from the Korean perspective. On the other hand, Japanese believe that it was always theirs, and then Korea just took it from them kind of took advantage of the fact that, you know, the empire fell apart. And even though technically in around like 1600s, when there was a dispute between like fishermen from the Korean side and the Japanese side, they agreed that, okay, the Koreans can have it. I believe that the Japanese still actually think that it's theirs. And so, yeah, for them, Koreans shouldn't be on the island. It's not theirs. So as you can see, it's a highly sensitive issue, especially for Koreans, and Koreans themselves are very protective of whatever they have left, especially what they were able to keep after the war. Whenever the issue comes up, pretty much everybody kind of unites. Like, there's no one who... I can't think of anyone in Korea who would be like, oh yeah, Japan should just grab those islands, we don't need them. Like, it's not a thing, okay? Everyone is like, Dokdo is ours, Dokdo is Korean, okay? This is the name of the islands. Whereas on the Japanese side, right, they're like, no, it's not Dokdo, it's Takeshima, it's ours, and we're gonna get it back. And so how is this even related to League, right? And why am I even talking about this? Well, because this creator, of course, he's a creator. He's gonna do what he needs to do in order to generate buzz, make statements so that he can get more views, he can get more exposure, and, you know, a little bit of drama never hurts, I guess. So maybe you're watching this and you're like, so what's the issue? There is no issue. But as far as I can see, there is kind of an issue, which I'm not sure if I can call it like double standards, but yeah, let me explain. So I understand that Riot, not just Riot Japan, but Riot overall, right? They don't welcome political disputes or like overly political statements. And we've seen them kind of give warnings to both pros and also creators about, you know, being too politically outspoken. And so basically they just try to avoid those kinds of issues, keep the game as non-political as possible, which, I mean, in certain areas they do, in certain other areas they don't, but overall they try to be apolitical. But in this case, especially from the Korean perspective, naming the islands as Dokdo, it's not a political dispute or issue. They believe it's a fact. On the other hand, the Japanese server, in this case, suspends a player for simply alluding, right? Because his name doesn't even directly spell at this point, doesn't spell Dokdo, right? But just kind of alludes to the Korean name for a territory, thereby making it seem as if it is a political dispute. Well, you might say, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? But suspending a player for having a nickname that doesn't even directly spell Dokdo? I don't know. Like, it's the official Korean name for the islands. Suspending a player for having that in their nickname? I don't know. Seems kind of petty to me. Also just gives expression to a little bit of a sour state of the relationship between the two countries. Now, it's one thing if, like, you know, his nickname gets reported, which I'm sure it did get reported, but it's Riot Japan, right, making the statement like, okay, we're suspending you, we're changing your nickname, you can't do that here. That just shows how provocative it is to give the Korean name to a territory which Koreans believe is rightfully theirs. So that's one thing, right? The whole political issue, like saying that you're not being political, but then at the same time doing things that are clearly political. Because, for example, like, let's say I change my nickname on the Korean server to, I don't know, like Sea of Japan, right? So there's a sea out there called, some people call it the Sea of Japan, and Koreans don't like it, right? It's not like Japan owns the sea, so they call it the East Sea. And some maps actually, in English, they label it as the East Sea to try to be as politically neutral as possible. But if I have a nickname on the Korean server that says the Sea of Japan, I don't think I'm gonna get suspended or banned for that. Like, probably people are not gonna like it. Maybe some people are even gonna report me for that, but it would just be too petty. I don't think it would result in an immediate suspension. But I guess that's not how it works on the Japanese server. So that's number one. But number two, the reason why I'm making this video and why this caught my attention and why I thought, well, I think I can say something about this is because, like I said in the very beginning, I also am kind of a direct product of this whole Japan territories and imperialism and World War II and all that stuff. It's a big mess. The island where I'm from, the history is a little bit convoluted, but overall, to keep it short, the island was originally just inhabited by the indigenous people. Then the Russians discovered it, started officially occupying it around 1800. Then there was a war between Russia and Japan. Japan took over the southern part of the island. Then the Japanese empire fell apart and Russia took the island back. And so now it's officially Russian territory, but Japan is still trying to get the southern part of it back. They don't really call it Sakhalin. They call it by the name that they called it, which is Karafuto. They believe that it's Karafuto, it's theirs, and yeah. So from their perspective, it just looks like this was ours, it was taken away from us, we need to get it back. If you are wondering what actually happened on the island when the Japanese were occupying it, you are welcome to watch my other video where I talk about my family and how we ended up there. And I came from that history of, you know, forced migration, forced relocation of Korean people from the Korean peninsula into the island so that they were under forced labor. Also, a lot of the deception that happened, and for us who were born on the island and who still live on the island, I don't live on the island anymore, but I have a lot of relatives who still live there. I visit there, and like if you're born as a Sakhalin Korean, you're always a Sakhalin Korean. It doesn't matter where you end up in life. But like for us, when Japan just kind of like, hey, can we have it back? I don't know, it's a little bit of a slap in the face because it's a nasty, nasty history. And yeah, you can Google it, you can find some things about it. I made a video, once again, like I said. I think we share the same sentiment with the mainland Koreans when it comes to the Dokdo Islands. It's kind of the same issue, like, we don't want Japan to have those territories. A lot of the international kind of press coverage of the issue, they sometimes kind of act like they don't know why Koreans are kind of like so salty about it. Like, why do you need those territories so much? Like, why does it matter? Or why not just be a little more open about it or a little less emotional? But it just betrays the kind of ignorance that people have over what actually happened during the war, when it comes to Koreans and what they suffered, what they had to go through. It's almost like telling someone to just get over it. Like, get over the trauma. Get over the fact that you guys were colonized and you had no voice, and you guys are actually like one of the smaller countries in East Asia, Far East Asia. So yeah, overall, I just want to say that this whole situation, and even seeing just if Korean kind of making just a slight mention of the name and then getting instantly suspended, like, I don't know, doesn't make me feel very comfortable about it. It just, to me, seems a little bit unfair. Now, do I think he is absolutely right in making a provocative nickname, fully knowing that it's going to be provocative to the Japanese people on the Japanese server? I mean, I don't think so. Like, I don't think that necessarily he has to do it. But like I said, of course, he's a streamer, he's a content maker, so he's fully aware. I'm sure he's fully aware of what he's doing. But even though I think that he doesn't necessarily have to do it, do I think that at this point he should just shut up and not do anything about it? I don't think so. At this point, he might as well just keep going. Keep exposing the issue, keep making it known, and I guess also expose some of the hypocrisies that are out there, at least as far as I can see, in a way that Riot claims that they are non-political, but then they use political issues to suspend players. It just makes me wonder about the sides and priorities and I don't know, whatever else that is governing the company. And I mean, come on, the dude reached #1 rank in Challenger by playing only Singed and Rumble. Like, that just makes it even more ridiculous. Like, the whole situation. Like, who really is the salty one here? But anyway, that's just my little rant on the issue. What do you guys think? Do you think it's worth the attention? Do you think the whole issue should just get buried and nobody needs to know about it? Do you think Riot Japan is justified in what they did to this player? Do you think he did anything wrong? Should political disputes or issues be used to ban or suspend players? Let me know in the comment section below. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. This was Zoya, the Russian Korean. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.